First Henry Cavill, now they're replacing Ben Affleck too. James Gunn reportedly planning to bring Robert Pattinson's Batman to the core DCU. Now, here's the thing. Before we get started, because I do not want to be fake news and because this is all rumor, James Gunn has said since this came out on Twitter that this
has been
not
developing
true.
throughout the morning.
Yeah.
So here's the exact quote from the Variety article. At least one core element of the so-called Snyderverse is likely over. A well-placed source says Gunn and Safran are exploring the possibility of incorporating filmmaker Matt Reeves' iteration of Batman with actor Robert Pattinson into their wider universe. And then James Gunn came to Twitter to clarify in a quote tweet of Variety. He said, "There are a few reporters I love more than Adam Very, who is the one that wrote this article. He said, truly a good guy, but in this case, he needs to get a new source, as this is entirely untrue."
This is what I'm thinking right here. Guys, I demand to know who these sources are, because every day we get 5 new articles from 5 new people. Who are they?
It's exactly the same thing that happened when people thought James Gunn scrapped the idea of making a Wonder Woman 3 altogether. First of all, everyone's raising their pitchforks, and then they get a clarification, and then they're like all rainbows and puppies about James Gunn. They can't decide how they feel about him. So I saw all of these tweets that were like, fire James Gunn. He's about to ruin DC.
Yeah. Well, also, like, the thing is like, if you just think about it on the outset, assuming that it's not true, the visions of the two franchises don't really work. The DCU doesn't really work, in my opinion, with the darker tone of Matt Reeves' Batman, which benefits from having its own very unique feel to it that doesn't feel connected to anything else. So it's like, you kind of just have to take the macro view and like take the 30,000 foot view and be like, okay, that doesn't really make much sense. Maybe down the line in a decade when they've established these franchises and there's a consistent tone amongst the rest of the DCU, we can talk about that. But right now it doesn't make much sense. I also tend to think that, what if this is just the hazing from Warner Media, and they're like, he needs to survive at least a couple of months of just non-stop media blitz.
They're like hiring bots
they're like
inundate his Twitter replies.
They're like, if he can make it through 2 months without going off in an absolute mental Twitter tirade after just constantly having to debunk rumors, this and that, then we know he's the guy for the job.
He is tweeting quite a lot.
You think Batman needs to be less dark?
No, I'm saying that he needs to not be in the DCU because I don't want him to change the tone. I don't want him to feel like he's incorporated into the James Gunn world, which is far less serious. I don't know if the rest of the DCU following the projects that are coming out now will go in line with how Gunn directs his films, which is far lighter in tone than what they've done in the past. But I don't want to see the lighter tone of Batman. I don't think it needs.
Me neither.
I think like everybody from Marvel just has these worms in their brain. James Gunn, not an exception, that just gives them this impulse to make everything a connected universe. Yep. Everything has to be multiverse, and also you have to add stupid dick jokes and lighthearted humor where it tonally doesn't belong.
Nope.
All of these brainworms, these parasites, are just controlling James Gunn, it seems. If he's planning on doing this. But he says it's untrue. I think the prospect of replacing Ben Affleck with Robert Pattinson entirely in the DCU would be a terrible idea, but like,
why?
Maybe Dane would be okay with this.
No, I'm for it. I'm openly for it.
Okay, here's the other thing. What if this is secretly Kevin Feige just sending all these anonymous sources out so that he can distract James Gunn so that nothing ever gets done or made?
The conspiracies.
You don't think Pattinson was a better Batman?
I didn't like that movie. I didn't.
Really? I liked it.
I mean, even if you liked the movie, if you disliked it, that doesn't
the ending
mean
was kind of weird.
We can't come together and saying like it belongs in its own thing.
Yeah,
it should be its own other universe that isn't related or connected to the rest of it.
It didn't live up to my expectations for Matt Reeves' work. And aside from that, it's still art, right? It's still art. It's still been created, but it's not art that needs to be incorporated into somebody else's shared world of art. It survives and it thrives on its own. It does not need to be part of something more homogenous.
I just think it'd be weird to go back to Ben Affleck Batman.
Here's the other thing. Does this mean that I saw rumors that they canceled his appearance in Aquaman, which is now going through reshoots with its $205 million budget, which is low. Honestly, I thought that was low for a movie that's going to be as effects heavy as a movie that made $1 billion. I mean, that's kind of cool that they didn't give it like this enormous budget just because the first Aquaman movie made $1 billion.
I didn't think it was low. I think it was modest but realistic, given that we just saw Black Panther's sequel get a $250 million budget.
250
with less effects. Probably.
250 million seems to be because both of them involves heavy underwater CGI. And
right.
To me, it feels like 250 would have been where they would have gone for a movie that it's like their only recent movie that's made $1 billion. Why wouldn't you put all the money behind it? But I support the idea that they didn't, because they should be learning how to do more with less. Focus on storytelling. Don't focus on just throwing a bunch of money at the wall and expecting that to make up for it. I also think it's funny because he also dispelled the rumor that him and Patty Jenkins have any type of beef, because he basically said our interactions have been nothing but cordial and polite.
Well, Patty Jenkins posts this gigantic, long, open letter onto Twitter.
I literally TLDR'd it first.
Yeah.
I was like, I had to go back.
Completely unrelated. Her name sounds like that of a hall monitor.
Patty Jenkins. It does.
She sounds like she would definitely scold you for being late somewhere.
Her open letter is just aiming to clear up inaccuracies. She claims she did not walk away from writing Wonder Woman 3's script. And actually, it was a conflict with writing for Rogue Squadron, but now neither of them are getting prioritized. Seems kind of cornered.
Well, she also said that she originally that Rogue Squadron was never canceled. She took a step back so that she could do Wonder Woman 3. Now Wonder Woman 3 doesn't fit into the universe plans. Now I guess she goes back to Rogue Squadron. Either way,
they want her back.
Well, they said that movie is still in active development.
And James Gunn replied to this tweet saying, "I can attest that all of Peter and my interactions with you were only pleasant and professional." I don't think she really implied anything other than that, though, with her letter.
Well, no, but the idea is that they're saying that she implied that when she sent like Pamela Abdi and Michael DeLuca the thing about character arcs.
I guess that's kind of snarky, but it was in a private communication. It wasn't on social media.
The other reason we can expect that the Ben Affleck stuff and the Robert Pattinson stuff will not be solved anytime soon is because David Zaslav was very serious about, we are not going to have Batmen. We're going to have one Batman in this world. And the funny thing is, back in the day, it used to be like you didn't want to have multiple versions of characters on screen because people would get confused. And it's not really about that anymore. It's just about oversaturation. Like, I actually like Tyler Hoechlin as Superman and Superman and Lois, but I would prefer to have Henry Cavill. But what do you do when there's 9 versions of each character and they're shooting for normies? Normies are like, he looks different in this one. He's not quite as built as that Henry Cavill Superman. And now they're talking about, God willing, a Hawkman movie, which is completely unnecessary. I love Aldous Hodge, but it used to be a thing where to get a spin-off, you had to give a particularly impressive and rousing performance that got everybody talking. That is not the case anymore. Now they're just like, yeah.
I mean, the Black Adam shills would say that was a very special performance deserving of a spin-off.
It was not.
I don't think it was. Maybe they could give him a series.
No, do the Dr. Fate series. Like, there was more organic desire to see more of Dr. Fate than there was of Hawkman. Hawkman felt like people, at the very least, people liked them together, but it seemed to err on the side of they liked Dr. Fate because Pierce Brosnan is a particularly like legendary and charismatic actor, and that character has a long history.
But you can make an Aldous Hodge film that is marketable to China, not a Pierce Brosnan one.
But no, you cannot, because China's kind of racist, and I don't think they would want if you have to shrink John Boyega on the Star Wars posters just to get it released in China, and you have to play. Did you know when? Okay,
I'm not sure how much of that is like our assumption.
That's a
like
the thing
a preemptive thing. Like, did they have to minimize him on that because China insisted on it, or because they preemptively assumed it would be a problem.
I'll tell you the one that they did do. When they released the Black Panther posters for the first Black Panther movie with Chadwick Boseman, they wouldn't let him have his helmet off in the posters. He had to have the helmet on. So I don't
even
think
though it's literally called Black Panther.
I don't think you could have the Aldous Hodge Hawkman movie do gangbusters in China. And I don't know how much, like, it feels like as much as we talk about it, it feels like most of Hollywood is pushing away from the Chinese market. Kind of, doesn't it feel that way? Like we're seeing less and less reliance on it.
Yeah, but that means you hope to outrun their relevancy in the box office, and that's impossible to do.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And it's egotistical to think that you can get around that hurdle when they're giving such huge budgets to sequels and spin-offs. Like, you can't keep that up forever.
It's how Jurassic World stayed in the top 2 or 3 of movies this year as far as box office, because it got a release in China that did very, very well. Mm-hmm. So
I must have no sense of money anymore, because when you say $250 million, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
But like people's like, that's a modest.
Well, here's the other thing.
Budget
Marvel doing $250 million, even this last phase, a lot of those movies didn't make a whole ton of profit. Like Eternals didn't make a whole ton of money. Like most of those movies did okay.
Yeah.
But it still makes more sense for Marvel to greenlight a $250 million budget movie than it does for DC, because they just don't have the track record that proves that they can pull it off. Look at Black Panther, only just broke $400 million domestically. And I don't know if they're going to hit $1 billion. If they do, it's going to have to stretch out over time. But they're about to. Last week was one of the worst box offices of the year, even though it was number 1. It was one of the worst box offices they'd ever done. But also, we're about to hit the brick wall of Avatar that nobody's going to be seeing Black Panther after this weekend. So
do they need $1 billion to be profitable?
No, but I'm just saying the less you make it for, the less you have to make to.
Right.
So if a movie costs $250 million, or let's say $200 million, right, and your production budget is 1.5 times that is your marketing budget. So $350 million. The theaters take 40% of that revenue. Either the theaters take 40 or the studios take 40. I don't remember which one it is. They split it 60-40 with the theaters. So you have to double that just to break even, and then double that if you want to actually get into a realm of reasonable profit. There was just the story about how The Rock might have forged documents or leaked documents just to prove that Black Adam made money. And I don't buy that. Like, that's one that
copium The Rock is on right now is crazy.
I'm clearly, like, judging by what that budget was, the numbers aren't numbering. It is not, the math is not mathing.
That was what, 190 million?
200. I mean, it was closer to 200.
Something like that.
And I don't buy that they didn't spend more on marketing because of COVID. Or I'm sorry. I don't buy that there wasn't more spent on that budget because of COVID anyways. Like, I don't buy that they broke even on that one. I think they lost money and they're coping. But that's my take on it.
Or at least they barely broke even, and they expected it to make close to $1 billion, and they didn't.
And
it just had like opportune timing for 2-3 weeks.
Well, they do that on purpose. I mean, they plan where these comes out. Here's the other thing. They're also saying that Momoa and John Cena are safe because because Cena is safe because Peacemaker, the character, is a product of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad and then the Peacemaker TV series. And Momoa, even if they don't do Aquaman 3, they want him for the Lobo character in the DCU. So it's like, where do you go with these? Like, Gal Gadot should be safe. Like, I would rather keep her as well. Like, and that's the thing we've talked about. I've railed against this consistently. Like, depending on the day, some days I want them to just get rid of all of them and wipe the slate clean and start over.
I want that.
But at the same time, I love Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. It's like, it sucks to have to see somebody with so much potential as that character be put into a divisive movie like Batman vs Superman, a bad movie like Justice League, one really good movie, meaning Wonder Woman 1, and one really bad movie like Wonder Woman 2. It feels like an actor that good should be blessed with a better track record.
You know, I've given this take before, but I'm going to give it again. I think that Henry Cavill will be a better Batman than he is Superman.
No, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, like,
Armie Hammer. Just hire Armie Hammer. Lean into it.
The only reason why he's a good Superman is because he's got that serious face. But I think he can pull off the whole being very tortured person subtly.
Yep.
And that,
I don't know if I agree with that, but
he looks like Bruce Wayne.
Even if that could work. It's too late now, and that would be
Yeah,
incredibly
no,
confusing.
you can't do it now.
He does look.
He
like,
looks like Bruce Wayne.
He looks like the animated version of Bruce Wayne. He's wide like that. Like if you look at the animated movies version or like Batman the animated series, Bruce Wayne
like a
person
tank.
is a tank like in a suit. So he does fit that more than that. But Ben Affleck
Robert Pattinson is a relatively small guy,
and he's in a lot of those are older versions of Batman, and he's playing the just past year one version of Batman. Here's the other thing. They're going to suffer more than anything from all of this just feeling malfunction.
Thank you.
All of this they're suffering from it all feeling extremely poorly planned and out of control. Like, it doesn't feel like there's any type of reins being held in. At the very least, why is so much information getting out? If we were to take all of this
who
as
are
true,
these well-positioned sources? All of these anonymous sources that are being used by mainstream publications like Variety. Who are they, and why is their information never reliable? When James Gunn comes to clarify what's going on, when Patty Jenkins clarifies what's going on behind the scenes,
a lot of times leaks are fake. But like a lot of times
he could be lying. Like when Overlord DVD got all the details about Star Wars, or all the stuff that leaked about Masters of the Universe Revelations, all of that stuff ended up being true. So
what about this? People react badly to the news that Matt Reeves' Batman will be incorporated into a multiverse, and then when he thought he would go ahead with that plan earlier, he just changes his mind last minute and says this is entirely untrue.
The other thing is I want him locked in for 10 years. I don't want none of this 4-year contract BS. I need to know that he's not going to just leave at the 4-year mark. James Gunn.
Oh, his contract is only for 4 years.
Like he needs to actually be there for the 10 years.
It's like a movie and a half.
Yeah. Well, they said most of this stuff won't even start until 2024.
Well,
think about
he clearly doesn't have faith in DC's ability to pull a 10-year plan off.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's early days. Like we'll see down the line. It's very possible that this news starts to like dry up and they start coming out with actual concrete plans. But here's the thing: think about this. Every time news comes out now, here's the casting announcement. You're going to be casting this day. It feels like when Marvel's casting stuff comes out, the news doesn't really hit big until they actually start production on these things. And even then, it's not really, you don't hear a lot of the same news until trailers come out. It feels like DC's movie is actually just them trying to get the movies made, not the actual movies themselves.
Yeah, like we thought that Henry Cavill was going to be back filming for a Superman sequel in February 2023. Yep. It's laughable to think that we were talking about that now.
I know.
And poor Henry Cavill, if he is going to get sidelined, because it seems like he left the Reacher in hopes that he would come back to this character, and it didn't work out.
They hire him, but they hire him for the Black Superman movie, but just not as Superman. They have him
just as someone totally irrelevant.
They should hire him as Lex Luthor in the and just break the entire world there.
That's a really bad move by them.
Like
if
shave
that's
his head,
what they really go for.
Shave his head and make him Lex Luthor.
No,
I'm struggling because honestly, out of the Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, the only person I don't want to come back is Ben Affleck. No offense, but because like she's pretty good, and honestly, I don't enjoy Superman that much, so.
I'm here for like I'm sick of dark and gritty. Give me hopeful Superman. Like 5 years ago,
you guys are totally opposite on this.
We are. Well, five years
what,
ago,
Superman?
On like the tone, dark and gritty versus.
I don't like. I'm saying like I don't like the character Superman enough to have like a strong opinion of it. So I'd side with it. Whatever you said.
Also, this is another thing that I was thinking about because I rewatched The Dark Knight. Was it last week? It's dark. Like they use that term, dark and gritty, but most of the tone of that movie and the themes are hopeful. Like when you think about the theme at the end, where they're doing the scene where they give each of the boats the detonator for the other bomb, and they both decide to not, like the convict side does not blow. That's a hopeful theme.
Dude, people clapped in the theater I was in, and it was so cringe. They were like,
but I'm just saying, like the tone is like, I feel like nowadays the idea of dark and gritty just means hopeless. It doesn't need to mean that. The execution of the cinematography can be dark and gritty. You can still execute hopeful human tones to your movies. I feel like they tried to do that at the end of the Batman, and it came off cheap.
I think the rendition of Superman that I've liked the most, again, is from the animated series where he's kind of quirky, which kind of
Yeah.
it makes sense with the whole farm kid
Yeah.
vibe. Whereas what I get from Henry is like very like serious, you know.
Well, it is.
The loophole here for all of this Batman controversy is don't make a connected universe for DC. No one is asking for it. No one wants it. And
feels
it's like
that way, yeah.
James Gunn just goes into this mechanical mode where it's all he knows and he has to impose the same structure of the MCU onto the DCU. And it just shows a lack of creativity.
Yeah. Well, and like think about that. You don't need to connect him. Wonder Woman could be like maybe that's the benefit of instead of hiring like lesser known actors in a connected universe, you hire really, really high profile, well-known actors to
make singular movies which have been successful.
that they can just do on their own. So
Yes.
Gal Gadot can be the queen of her own
It's
empire.
all a lot easier than
Yeah.
what he's proposing, actually. And it would actually help them eke out a living when MCU stuff is dominant in theaters right now.
Yep, do your own thing.
They would be distinct and make their own track record of successful singular movies.
It feels like they're falling back into the same trap of problems that they had when they first announced Justice League was going to come right after Batman vs. Superman, and they didn't need to do that when they could have just done their individual movies on their own. They're trying to rush it to be Marvel, and they don't need to be that. They should be
That's
their own
such a
thing.
shame.
Yep, it is.
Another thing is it's weird to see professional spats be aired out on social
Yeah.
media among grown adults
Yep.
when they could just privately communicate. It's just a shame that
Twitter was a mistake.
yeah, like why would Patty Jenkins even feel the need to post this?
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.